on this week's episode of Magnified, we're joined by Lesley Pyle of HireMyMum.com. Welcome, Lesley.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm looking forward to this because I don't know too much about the business. And we were introduced through Kurt, who was on our show a few weeks ago. So I'm looking forward to hearing about the business and how it kind of grew and everything like that. So I think that'd be a good place to start. What is HireMyMum.com? How did it come to be? And we'll kind of take it from there.
All right. Okay. Well, it came to be because when I first became a mom, I had just finished my master's degree and had no intentions of staying at home. I wanted to climb the corporate ladder and do marketing and public relations. But something changed in me when she was born. And all of a sudden I'm like, I don't know if I can do that, like a full-time outside of the home working mom. And that was in 1995. And working from home was not really widely accepted. Nobody was really doing it. And it was kind of like if you did work from home, you weren't very professional. So I was kind of stuck in, okay, what am I going to do? Because I did go back to work for 2 weeks, but I cried every single day. And I go, okay, this is not going to work. So bottom line is I took the leap into freelancing, cut the budget everywhere we could because we went from a salary to nothing basically until I could get something going. So we only had one car. We ate ramen noodles. We did all of that. And I hit the ground running. And this was back before, the internet was big or anything. There was obviously no social media. So finding clients meant phone calls and door knocking, which is not my favorite thing to do. But I did it. I was motivated and I was determined. So I began that freelance journey. And I quickly learned that I needed community. I needed to learn from other people. There was a lot of things I didn't know how to do back then. And so I began looking for other women who were working from home or wanting to and didn't find anything. So I thought, okay, why don't I start something? So I was learning about the internet at that time. So I taught myself how to build a website and built this website called Home-Based Working Moms. And it was kind of like an online chamber of commerce for women to sign up. There was a monthly membership fee, or you could join for free. And so I did that for about 14 years and was able to develop income through advertising from companies that wanted to reach this market. It was primarily back then like home parties. Remember those? Like Creative Memories and Pampered Chef and those sorts of companies that were looking for women to do home parties. But there were people who were doing professional services at home, but they were the minority back then. And so I did that, and I had this great community of women. I don't remember, I want to say at one point, probably 100,000 women, because we also had a free option. And we had the message boards and all of that because there was no social media or anything. So anyway, in about 2006, 2007, I was like, okay, I've got this great, community of women. Some of them just want to work from home for someone. What if I could create a website that was like Match.com that connected moms or women that wanted to work from home with small businesses that need to contract out or hire, an employee from home, remote employees, but primarily it was contractors. So that's where the idea of Hire My Mom was born. And that was in 2007. So here I am 15 years later. It started with a very basic business model where I was just trying to prove my concept. So I allowed businesses to post jobs for free to try to get as many as I could for these women, and charged a very small fee for women to get these jobs because they were hungry for them. So I was like, I got to make money somehow. I can't, do this for free. So that's how it all began.
How have things changed in the last 3-4 years now that working from home is almost more of an ideal situation than it was back then? And like you said, it wasn't really something people did. Have things changed in that respect? Are you getting more attention, more visitors to the site, and have the job types changed also?
I think for the small business community that I serve, it didn't change a ton because we were already used to the whole working remotely thing. So we didn't have to change our mindset. I think where we saw the biggest change was in the bigger companies, the small to medium to large companies who had to try the remote work option, whether they wanted to or not for a lot of people. And so that's where I've seen the biggest mindset shift. And we don't serve a lot of big companies. We serve a lot of solopreneurs, real estate agents, coaches, small businesses that are, 10 to 20, mostly remote employees. We do have some that have an actual building, but so our business, you would think would have a huge boom, and we did have an increase, but it wasn't, anything tremendous.
I want to go back to something you said kind of the beginning of that, where you referenced, you went from a salary to having nothing, and the sacrifices. Was that with your husband at the time?
Yes.
Okay. So that is something I think a lot of agents in particular, and even people who are starting new businesses, marketing agencies, that kind of thing. We have a lot of listeners that do that too. Any advice there for how to navigate that, both with having someone you're doing it with, so you've got someone you're kind of obliged to be helping and that kind of thing, and also just as a person, like how did you deal with having to make those sacrifices? How did you tell yourself, this is going to be the right thing, and kind of keep motivated to do it?
Right. Yeah. Like I said, it was difficult because we went from not a huge salary because I was fairly new in my working career, but we had just bought a home and we just had a baby. So we had bills and we had a mortgage, and we just, looked at our budget and we said, where can we cut? So like I said, we sold the one car that had a payment. So we had no car payments. The other car we had was old and didn't have a payment. So I didn't have to have a car working from home, but occasionally I did because I had to meet clients, and I always offered to meet at their office, conveniently. So I didn't have to admit that I worked from home. And in those cases, we tried to plan it around the lunch hour so he could come get me. He'd stay in the car with the baby and I'd go meet with the client. So it was crazy that we made it work, but we also got rid of cable TV. Like I said, we looked at everything we could cut that wasn't a necessity, and we did our best to be frugal at the grocery store. We ate ramen noodles, and that motivated me because I was determined. I knew if it didn't work, I was going to have to go back to work at a full-time job, and that just did not work for me. And so that motivation led me to push myself outside of my comfort zone and make those calls, go to networking events, pick up the phone, knock on doors, talk to people that, hey, do you know anyone who could use these services? And so it was just more out of, just a complete determination. And I think I needed a minimum of like 500 or 600 a month just to pay our bills. That meant you can't go out for ice cream or anything. And so that wasn't a lot of money, but it was a lot of money when you're starting from zero. And, this was 25 plus years ago when, $500 was more than it is today.
Yeah. And, it's something a lot of entrepreneurs, I'm one myself. I've got a fitness business also. And it's hard to get into that mentality of, even when you're making money, you still got to put it back into the business somehow. So, and it's also great that you had a partner that was, ride or die with you. Like,
Right.
we're going to get through this together. I think that could be a detriment to a lot of people who are trying to do it when they don't have that support. So that's great. And so piggybacking off of that, I wanted to talk about, you got 4 kids, right?
Yes.
How have you managed the obligations of running a business and having a family? Because real estate agents in particular, you're working in very unsocial hours when everybody else is not working, because that's the nature of it, right? You've got to show houses when people are available. How did you navigate the family obligations with the work obligations?
Right. Yeah, that's a great question because I tell people, I know just working behind a computer is a little bit different than a real estate agent that's actually going out and meeting clients. But for me, once my baby got a little bit older, I knew that I could no longer serve my baby and my business and do it well. Something was going to have to give. If I was going to work more than roughly 10 hours a week, something was going to have to give. So I made the decision at that time, once, this was with me working obviously more than 10 hours a week. So I was making a little bit of money and I was like, okay, I need someone to help with this baby when my husband can't. So I hired someone to come in. It just happened to be my sister-in-law at the time. And so she watched the baby in the other room while I worked for, an hour or two a day sometimes. And that built up as my business grew. I needed more time. And then once my kids were roughly, I think it was 18 months old, they went to Mother's Day out at our church. And I don't know if that's something that's nationwide or just here. I'm in Texas. But they have Mother's Day out 9 to 2. And so my kids went and they did finger paints and crafts and art and playground and chapel. And they loved it because it gave them socialization with other little kids. And I loved it because it gave me 5 hours of dedicated work time. So that's how I managed with my kids when they were little. And then, of course, when they went to school, that opened up my time even more. But I was always, in the summers, again, I would hire a babysitter. A lot of times then it was a high school kid to come in and watch the kids because I knew I wanted to be able to devote my time well to business, but also well to my kids. And I couldn't do those both at the same time unless they were napping or occupied for little bits of, time. But if you have kids, you know that they're not occupied for hours at a time without needing you.
Yeah, I think that what you said is really important, that you can't do both well at the same time. So it's often advice I give to people when they're trying to figure out how much time to allocate to things. It's just, if you are going to spend 2 hours a day working, make sure you're focused for those 2 hours. And then don't, when you're with your kids, you're with your kids. You're not trying to do both at the same time. You're not distracted, just being fully focused. And even if it's 30 minutes on a task, just spend it deliberately and stay focused. I think that's key, like you said. I wanted to give you some space to talk about your faith, because I noticed on your website that was something that was very important to you. Of course, the one day I'm wearing a sweater, I don't have all my Catholic tattoos showing.
Yes.
How have you let that guide you in your professional and personal life? Is that something that you look to when, in times of struggle and to look for motivation, things like that?
Yes, absolutely. I'm very committed to, having my time with God in the morning before I start my day through Bible reading, through prayer. Sometimes I lead Bible studies here in my home. And it's been instrumental in me forging the path forward, because we all have ups and downs in our lives. And the up times you think you don't need God, but I promised you, at least for me, I still do. And it's those days when I desperately need him that I'm thankful that I've established that relationship where I go to him with, thanksgiving for the great times, and then, deep heartache for the rough times. And, he kind of keeps me even keel where I know that no matter what, my salvation is secure in him. And no matter what, I can find joy in him in the rough days. It's not always easy. Some days you feel like you have a dark cloud that follows you everywhere you go. It's like those days I have to dig deep and go, the joy of the Lord is my strength, But he's been a constant in my life since I was about 16 years old. But, the older I get, the more I feel like my roots go deeper, because, it's just, that's where I feel like the whole point of our lives lie in our existence, with knowing God, serving God, and loving others.
Yeah, I particularly like what you said about, seeking him and talking to him about gratitude, because oftentimes we retreat to God, I feel, when things are bad, when we need him. But I think if you can, harness the gratitude and that side of things and joy, then, I think it, like you said, grounds you and keeps you on an even keel. I think that's a really important message for entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs, whether that be, like I said, real estate agents and agencies, marketing, web developers, it's a roller coaster of emotions. Things don't always go smoothly. And when things are going good, it takes one phone call to make everything turn upside down. So having a constant in your life, whether that be religion, whether that be friends, family, I think that is really important. And I love hearing how devoted you are to it.
Yes. Thank you.
So building HireMyMom.com, what were some of the biggest mistakes you made? And I don't like saying mistakes. I like lessons learned. I picked that up recently. I think that's a great way of reframing things.
Right.
But what were some of the lessons you learned, and then some of the biggest successes you had, like the right decisions you made that you really paid off?
Yeah, I would say one of the hardest parts of my business has been web developers. And it's been a journey. I've gone through a few, and some of them, they're just not honest. I've learned the hard way that when you have a website like Hire My Mom that has a lot of back end functionality, that, you have a lot of different moving pieces. You've got all these different databases that have to interact. It's very complicated. And when I think the first company that I hired to do Hire My Mom, he was, in another state. I found him online. He had great reviews, but And I want to say, I don't remember, it's been, 20 years ago or 15 years ago. Whatever he was charging, let me just say it was around 10 grand, 15 grand. I think I gave him half of that up front. And all I ever got was basically a picture of what it could look like. And he kept, giving me the runaround and the runaround. And it took forever for me to finally realize he wasn't even doing the work, so that was a tough lesson to learn. So from him, I went to another company and I thought, okay, this time I'm going to hire someone local. I'm going to go meet them. I'm going to make sure they're legit. I'm going to see their work. I'm going to do it right. Well, I hired them and they ended up subbing my job out to India or something. And when I got it back, another, tens of thousands of dollars, I learned about a year into it that my website was fragile. Like they basically piecemealed things on the backside that, unless you're a developer, you wouldn't know.
Right.
And so from there, I found actually another Christian business owner. I asked him, who did your website? Even though he was actually a home builder. So a different type of business, but someone I trusted, and they actually were honest, legitimate, did a great website for me. But unfortunately, they ended up going out of business, not out of business, but changing directions, went into a different area. So it led me down that path to find one again. So it's been a real struggle to find someone that, it's almost like they speak a different language. You have no idea, if they're doing what they say they're doing. So for me, that's been the toughest. So I've learned that it almost needs to be word of mouth referral for me at this point, for me to have trust in them. So. Yeah,
I think that, and having a respected third party that will vouch for, we on our website at Showcase, we have, a whole page dedicated to approved. These are people we've vetted, we know do good work. I think that's important too. But like word of mouth there's nothing beats word of mouth.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And then I think your flip side of that was things that have successes. Is that what it was?
Yeah. Things decisions you made that really paid off.
Yeah, I would say by and far, it's having a great team to support me. And of course, when I first started out with Hire My Mom, I didn't have funds to hire anyone. I was doing everything. And so my strength back then, I won't say it's my strength today, but back then my strength was PR and marketing. So I was really good at getting the word out, getting visibility, getting on different, news programs, magazines, newspapers, and things like that. But I didn't have all the other skills. And so as it grew enough, my first hire was a virtual assistant to take over a lot of the administrative tasks for me that freed me up to do other things. And then from there, I have a team now. I think there are 6 of us. So I've got someone that helps with social media. And just coincidentally, she is my daughter that I had way back 25. Well, she's 27 now. And she now has 2 babies of her own. So she's my social media manager. So it's kind of fun that it's come full circle.
Yeah.
And then I have a email marketing person on my team. And all of these primarily are part-time. And I have 2 HR specialists that help me with some of our auxiliary services. Like we do resume, cover letter, interview skills training for job seekers. And then on the business side, we do concierge services. So if you came to me and said, you know what, I need a bookkeeper, I need a social media manager, whatever it is, but you don't have time to go through that process, or maybe you just don't like the hiring process, I have HR specialists basically talk to you, find out what you need, and go through the whole process with you, from posting the job to interviewing to doing assessments, and then presenting you with the top 2 to 3 candidates for you to decide which one to hire. So we've grown in that way because we've had clients come to us over the years saying, I need to hire, but I don't have time. Can you do it for me? And the first person that asked me that, I was like, no, I don't have time either. But after 3 or 4 people asked me that, I thought, oh, wait, I don't have time, but that's something that I could offer that would be of value to a small business owner or someone that just needs help, or maybe they don't even really think they're good at finding the right fit and they want someone who's skilled in that area. So,
yeah. So I'm always really interested in hearing from business owners how they decided who to hire and when, you know, especially as you started from when it's just you. And real estate agents are juggling so many plates, or that's not the right saying. It's spinning so many plates, juggling, wearing so many hats.
Right.
When you're trying to run a business like a marketing agency, you've got things to do outside of the actual job, the marketing. How
Yes.
did you decide when you should hire someone, and then which roles were kind of the ones you started picking off and
Yeah.
outsourcing to other people?
I tell people the simplistic way of looking at that is, what keeps you bogged down and unable to do what you're good at and what you enjoy doing. So, like administrative tasks usually are a easy one for people because they're like, somebody can answer my emails and answer calls and do some of that. And then also, what are things that you just don't like to do? Like, I hate accounting, I hate billing, I hate invoicing, or whatever it might be. That's another good thing to hire out for. And I actually get asked this question a lot. And that was another like light bulb moment for me is I thought, what if I just created a short course for business owners who really have never hired and they're kind of like uncertain which direction to go. So it's a pretty short course. It's 4 modules, but it's before you hire, things you should know before you hire, what common roles small businesses hire for, how much are the typical pay range for, like what do you pay a virtual assistant? So we have that in there, and then preparing to hire, interviewing, onboarding, and things like that. So it's a short course, probably take, someone, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 hours to complete, if that, but it just answers a ton of questions and gives people that are going to hire the confidence to go forward.
Yeah. What is it you look for when you're hiring someone? What are some of the key attributes of that person?
I look for someone that feels like they're a good fit for who I am as a person, number one. I also obviously look at their skills, their background, what they've done in the past, what they're looking to do in the future, because obviously if you hire someone, you want them to be on your team long term. So sometimes, like if you have a role, let's say it's administrative, if their goal is to someday be, a business owner, then they might not be long term with you. So that's something else that I look at. But I also think it's important just kind of the synergy you have. That's why I like when I do interviews, I always do, something video related. And I think most people do, but you get a feel for the person and their genuineness. Are they authentic? Or what they said on their resume is that just to get a job because they want money today, but they're not really in it for the long term. And it also helps if they're passionate about what you do, because I'm fortunate that, not everybody on my team is a mom, but all but one is. So a lot of them have a passion to help women find ways to work at home. And they love the opportunity to help small businesses thrive and grow, because you get satisfaction when you're a part of a team that's helping a business grow.
Yeah, definitely. How are some of the ways that I'm assuming real estate agents, you mentioned them earlier, they do use your service a fair amount, right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
How are some of the ways they utilize some of the jobs on hiremymom.com? And then secondly, what is something that they should look for in terms of VAs and that kind of thing when they're looking to hire?
Right. I would say the most common role that they hire for is a virtual assistant, but there's also something called transaction coordinator, I think it is.
Yeah.
So we have that, and we actually partner with the lady who trains people how to be a transaction coordinator. And those two I see fairly commonly, sometimes social media. But that, I think, just frees them up to do more of what they're good at, which is, meeting with clients, selling clients, and staying up to date on all the things that they need to be good at. And I think it's very similar to look for someone, that is also passionate about real estate, passionate about, helping you be successful, who you feel you have a rapport with when you interact with them. The first interview might be a little bit stiff, but if you meet with them again, and just invite them to relax and just talk to you as a friend, so that they know that they can kind of let that guard down a little bit. And then obviously you just want to make sure that they have the background and the skills that are most important to you. But if you have some that are kind of important, I say if you have a great candidate, train them.
Yeah.
And, usually there's not anything that they can't learn. If you invest in them and you think that they have that passion and that drive to stay with you, I think that's really important.
Yeah. And any advice on how you manage having a VA or a transaction coordinator, someone that's remote?
Mhm.
Because I think the temptation is to always try and micromanage, and you want to know exactly minute by minute what everyone's doing, which is a bad way to lead. But
Right.
people get into that habit. Any advice on how to manage having someone that's remote?
Yeah, what I like to do is when I hire someone in a new role. So, for instance, when I hired my VA, I didn't do this originally, but I do it now. I learned the hard way. Is we create a Google Doc, a shared Google Doc, and everything that she does is in that Google Doc, step by step instructions. Sometimes it might be a little video in there to show them what to do, and then when they start getting like she answers my emails from the website. And so anytime she gets a new question that's not in that document, we try to remember to update it. So there's a section for FAQs
Yeah.
so that she doesn't have to come to me with every question. Once I've trained her, she has that document to go to. And like I said, it's a living document, so it's updated when new things happen. But that frees me up not for her not to have to come to me constantly with questions, once she's trained. But jumping back just a little bit before that, I think it's really good to check in with your new hire at least once a week, but maybe every few days to make sure that they're understanding what to do and that they're doing it correctly. Because you don't want to see a month into the job that they've been doing something wrong that whole time. So for me, I do that for maybe the first month, check in with them regularly. And then it's like take the training wheels off and you're off and running. And then from there on, we have a monthly team meeting where we just all come together and kind of update each other on what's happening. But if there's something that's, happened that's, not in the training, then, obviously we'll go over that and add it to it. But I've found that works best for me. I don't want to have to hold hands with someone. I like to just let them go once they've been trained, and then just come back together, kind of keep that team mentality going. I like to express my appreciation for them. So I do my best to celebrate their birthdays, their work anniversaries, anything like that I can, send them small gifts, put it on social media to know that they're appreciated, because I think appreciation goes a long way too.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, like you said, being prepared and investing in the processes that people are going to work through, I think that it will end up taking a lot of time off your hands. Like you said, you don't want to handhold. And the whole
Right.
point of hiring someone is to take time, to give yourself time back, right?
Right. And we also use, I know there are different remote team and productivity tools. We use Asana. And so we have boards on there for different teams that work together, like our social media and our email marketing person will work together on certain things. And so there are shared boards, and that's accessible to any of us on the team. So if we're like, oh, what's our promotion for May? I forgot. They don't have to ask me again. They can go and look, oh yeah, we're doing a Mother's Day promotion, and that's where it is, in case, they need to know that for some information. And, it's accessible on the computer and the phone. So that's been another great tool for us to kind of keep everybody on the same page.
Yeah. Yeah, I like Asana. Talking of promotions, my next question was actually about your marketing. What are the avenues that you use, the platforms you use to market? What have you found to be the most successful for you? I mean, obviously it varies depending on the business, the person, but what have you found to be your most successful marketing strategies?
Word of mouth has probably been our biggest refer, because, when someone finds a job, they're excited, they tell everybody. And when someone hires someone, they're excited and they tell people. So that's been a huge one for us over the years, because we also strive to have excellent customer service. So, I know if you post a job on Indeed or one of those mega job sites, they don't have the capacity to interact with every customer, because they've got thousands or hundreds of thousands. I don't even know, but we, don't.
Yeah.
So we have the capacity to interact with our customers and answer questions and help them out. And that one's been a huge one for us. Then, we've been able to get some good marketing and publicity over the years. That's a little bit harder now because the market is so saturated, and I'm not novel and unique and one of a kind like I was in the beginning. But we also do Facebook ads, Google ads. We also, do a lot of SEO on the website and do blog content, weekly blog content that has keywords rich, so that we do come up in the search engines, fairly high, but we're competing with some of the million and billion dollar businesses. So we're not at the top anymore, but we'll be on the first page or two on some certain keywords. So that helps as well.
Yeah. Sounds like you've kind of gone for the whole kit and caboodle, right? And I think that's a good message for entrepreneurs, is that there's no real, you're going to have platforms that are particularly successful for one business, but really it comes down to just having your hand on a few different things and being consistent with it. Like you said, with the blog, I was on your site and I saw there was a lot of blog posts, right? A lot of people start their blog and then they don't post for 4 weeks, and you're not going to rank high if you do that. So
Right.
I think that's really important.
And that's something else that you can hire out. There are just people that are blog content writers. And if you only need one blog a month or one blog a week, you can still hire that out. So, that person might write blogs for 10 different websites, but that's what they do. So some people are scared to post a job. They think, I only need like 5 hours a week or 10 hours a week. Well, there are people that will take that because they're going to take several other clients too. And they become, what's good about that is they become really good at that skill. So, instead of hiring someone that's a jack of all trades, you're hiring a specialist, and, they're going to have other clients, and that's okay.
That's a great point. And I'm assuming that's something you could hire for on hiremymom.com, right?
That's right. Yeah. I hire it out too.
Yeah, perfect. So wrapping up, I want to talk a little bit about the entrepreneurial journey, and just to give some motivation to people, especially with real estate agents. It can take you 6 months to a year to even start making any money, let alone some. How long did it take you until you were in a place where you felt like, okay, this business is a success? And what were some of the things that, we talked about your faith. What were some other things that kind of got you through the harder times to stay motivated and stay on track?
Right. Like I mentioned, back in the early days, I paid myself very little. And if there was something that the business needed, I might not pay myself at all that month. I was fortunate to have a husband that had a salary, so it wasn't like I wasn't eating that month. It just meant that we were tightening our belt, and we were used to that because we had done that before. And, businesses kind of ebb and flow. I know with real estate, you can have feast or famine, and that can be the same for a business owner. Thankfully, mine is, obviously it's not all steady because it never is when you have an online business like that. But, it's fairly even. So I do have a good idea what my monthly and annual revenue is going to be. And obviously you hope that ticks up every month and every year. And sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So I think just having the mindset to conserve when you can, and put back in your business when you can is always a great idea. So, I know that I'm probably going to have to invest in updating my website again because it's been 4 years, and it's like, that's a big chunk of money. Yeah. So you have to start thinking about that, or I do, early on, and start setting aside money monthly for that.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of thinking about it, right? Like just being prepared and always having what's my next move? What do I need to do, and start, allocating assets towards.
Right.
Yeah. Well, Lesley, that was great. I really enjoyed that. Learned a lot about the business and the journey along the way. Where can people find you? Obviously, hiremymom.com, but where do you have some social platforms you're on?
Yeah, we're pretty much on every platform out there at Hire My Mom. So that's, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And my daughter even does TikTok for me because I'm not on there.
And if people hit you up on one of those channels, it will be you responding, or one of your team?
It's usually my daughter. And if it's something like they say, hey, Lesley, then she sends it to me. But if it's a general question on where can I go to post a job, she'll answer it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you again for joining us. That was great.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
All right.